In this lesson, we are going to be learning about what congruent shapes are. So we're going to identify them and look at them to make sure we know they're congruent. Shapes that have the same size and the same shape are congruent, just like these two signs here. Look at traffic signs to the right. Do they appear congruent? Yes, they do. They have the same size and the same shape. So we're going to compare the size and shape of some of these shapes. As you can see here, these shapes are congruent. They are the same shape, they're moved or flipped so that you can see they both have the same size and same shape. These shapes down here are not congruent. This is a different shape, and this one is a different size. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the camera, and we're going to choose some shapes to see if they are congruent or not. Okay, so first off, we have two rhombuses or rhombi, okay? These two shapes are congruent. They're the same size and the same shape, okay? The color doesn't matter. I could put this one on top of the other one, and you would see that they're the same shape, okay, and size. I could move this rhombi like that, but they would still be congruent. It doesn't matter how you move the shapes. Those two shapes are still congruent. If I took this away and put this rhombi here, or rhombus here, those two shapes would not be congruent because the yellow one is much bigger than the blue one, okay? You might even see it look like this. It's still not congruent. Let's take a look at these squares. These are two congruent shapes. They're exactly the same size and exactly the same shape. If I brought in this blue square, these would not be congruent because the blue square is much bigger than this red square. The same goes for these triangles. These triangles are congruent. I can actually put one on top of the other and see that they are the same size and the same shape. When you're looking at the two, this one might be turned this way, okay? They're still congruent. Could be turned this way. They're still congruent, okay? So I just want you to remember that no matter how the shapes are turned, if they're still the same size and shape, they are congruent. Getting back to our lesson, we're going to scroll down and take a look at some more shapes. So it says, which shapes appear to be congruent in shape A to shape A? Shape B would be congruent. It is the same size and shape. And shape C is actually not congruent because the size is smaller. Really, you could tell in the shape as well. This is a rectangle and that looks more like a square. Look at the first shape and tell if it appears to be congruent to the second shape, right? Yes or no? The way we can tell that these two shapes aren't congruent, we can actually count how many dots they go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? This one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's how you can tell those two are not congruent. When looking at these two shapes, they look congruent. It looks like the trapezoid is just turned, but let's double check by counting. Okay, so this long strip here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's see if it matches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let me double check that I counted that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Look at that. I had to double count because I thought it was wrong at first. So make sure you do that. This side has 2, This side has 2. So these two shapes are congruent. If we move down, we're going to tell if the shapes appear to be congruent. And so for number 4, that's definitely not congruent. Number 5, that is congruent. Number 6, they are congruent. Okay. If we wanted to check, we could check this bottom line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What about this shape? Has to have the same size, which it does, but is it the same shape? This shape has a hole here and the top up here. This is to the left, while this shape has it in the middle. So those shapes are actually not congruent because the shape is different. Looking at number 8, these two do not look congruent to me, but we'll check. So the top is 1, 2, 3, 4. Down is 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a square. Here, the top is 1, 2, 3, 4. But this side is only 1, 2, 3. Okay? So they're not congruent. These two shapes look congruent. It looks like they flipped it over to this other side. Okay? So that is how you tell the difference between shapes that are congruent and not congruent. And you can move on to the next part of your